Service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
And they're off. Welcome to In They're Off on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrill, and again, in the inaugural In They're Off for Mike Callahan.
Back-to-back inaugurations,
very
you know?
good. Now you're sliding right in.
I'm a complete veteran now.
Off the first hour, so this is nothing.
Yes.
This is nothing, and should be a fun hour. Pretty much Preakness, Black Eyed Susan conversation throughout. We'll be joined a little bit later on by our buddy Steve Bick. He was down there doing the radio show all this past week, and obviously there Friday and Saturday at Pimlico. And we'll also get some Pimlico conversation from our friend Frank Vespi, theracingbiz.com. If you want coverage of the racing in the Mid-Atlantic region, particularly Maryland, no better place to do it. And there were a couple of races with local flavor that I thought we'd touch on with Frank, including Recruiting Ready winning for Sagamore yesterday. So we'll hit on those with Frank Vespi because, as I say, he covers that region. We'll get some ideas from him on some of the local connections and how they did or didn't do, as it were, over the course of the weekend. But I thought we'd start out, jump right in, and take a look at the Preakness. And I'll point out as we watch the replay, I like Gunnevera. Gunnevera's the number 6 horse. Mike Smith down to backstretch and on the turn has him in a good spot. He makes a move about the same time as Cloud Computing. Watch Gunnevera as he comes into the stretch, though. Ducks down to the inside and then gets squeezed a little bit. He was done at that point. Cloud Computing was in a great spot for Javier Castellano, as we see coming down the stretch here. Mike, you mentioned it as well earlier. They talked about Classic Empire being out there and not letting Always Dreaming get away early. And you can see that was Julian Lepero's instructions.
Yeah.
He did it right here as we see him going into the first turn.
And I've been an Always Dreaming fan even before the Derby. I had Always Dreaming in the Derby. But again, when people were asking me about this race, I told them I didn't have as much confidence this race as I did in the Derby. And it's kind of shocking because you say, well, there's half the horses involved in it. In the Derby, Always Dreaming was going to be targeting horses. When I heard that Norm in that interview said that they were going to go with him, they were going to latch right to him, I knew we were the target now. So, as much as I liked Always Dreaming, Classic Empire did exactly what Norm said he was going to do. And, you're watching at this point right here, you can see that he has Always Dreaming sized the entire way.
And Julian Lepero said maybe we got the lead too early, and some people at post-race on NBC said, maybe you went to the lead too early. I think it was more a fact of Always Dreaming was done.
Yes.
Then Julian decided I'm going to go to the lead, so he really had no choice.
And I almost think that it kind of confused him that he was done so soon.
Yeah.
And then the big thing that they're going to second guess, and I know Julian may be second guessing is, when do you go now? Because you don't have anybody to target anymore, and you're out there, free. And I think he did nothing wrong. I think Classic Empire ran a huge race. And, the winner, Cloud Computing, you can say got a perfect trip, which he did, sitting right off the 2 leaders. But to go catch the 2-year-old champion, I mean, that was pretty gutsy to do. So
yeah, Castellano sitting in the kind of the catbird seat behind the 2 horses out there. But the fractions were reasonable, 23 and change, 46 and change, 111. The question now, of course, will continue. You had Todd Pletcher and kind of the Derby drought, as it were, that he got over last time with Always Dreaming. That was his second Derby and kind of solidified he can get it done. But questions coming into the Preakness were a 2-week layoff, and how would that work? And certainly I think that still remains a question.
Yeah, and what we were talking about when we did our dry run on Thursday was history led you to believe that all these horses in the Derby were going to do well in the Preakness. And what we did that quiz thing on who are the horses that have won the Preakness that haven't run in the Derby. And it was Red Bullet in 2000. It was Bernardini in 2006, Rachel Alexandra in 2009, and now Cloud Computing. So it had been since 2009 that a horse had won the Preakness not running in the Derby.
Yeah, and I will admit I whiffed. I thought this really went through the Derby horses. And other than Classic Empire, they, looking at Lee fourth, Guinevere fifth, Always Dreaming winds up eighth in here. The surprise was Senior Investment, as we saw in the replay, made the nice late run to just get up there for third. Is what the second longest price at 31-1 for the Kenny McPeek runner, which, as you said, may bode well for a Belmont try for him.
Yeah, it's worth a shot now. I mean, he outran his odds and, looked pretty good doing so. Kind of seemed like he just started getting into stride, halfway down the stretch. So it's worth a shot, especially if for some reason the Belmont comes up light or there's question marks on all these horses. I mean, why not take a shot with your horse, especially after a very good effort like that? So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. And as I say, I whiffed because Cloud Computing just did not get my juices flowing. And I mentioned that a couple times this week, but clearly Chad made the right move and had him ready with fresh legs
right
into the race.
I mean, he did for me only for the fact that Chad had all this confidence in him. He seemed like, I know that you guys did the show last week with Anthony, and he kept saying that he was kind of over his head or always reaching for that, extra push. And I liked his race in the Gotham, like I said at the last show. The only thing that I kind of got confused by was watching the board, and he was 13-1. So I thought if he was going to do what he did yesterday and run a huge race and catch Classic Empire, that he was going to be half the price. He's going to be somewhere in the 7 to 8-1 range, where you might be able to see that people are on that bandwagon. But you didn't see it because he was 13-1 and he was kind of lukewarm. So that was the only thing that made me kind of get off of him. But it's hats off to Chad again. I mean, that was a tremendous race, and he was very, very impressive. So. Yeah,
and the price leads us into a little discussion on the payouts. You got a nice $28 and change on the winner. I thought the pick payouts were all pretty good. Pick 3, 50-cent pick 3, $250. 50-cent pick 4, $1,400. 50-cent pick 5, over $6,000. The 20-cent pick 6 was over $7,000. And just to give you a little rundown, from that whole pick 6 sequence, Yoshida kicked it off. $7 horse, the second choice in a field of 12. Whitmore wins at $4, the favorite. And then the horses that juiced things up. Cambodia was $11, but $11. Third choice out of a field of 8. No Mo Doe, I had things circled on that horse, couldn't pull the trigger. There was the horse, though, $20, sixth choice in a field of 9. That juiced things up, because then World Approval, another favorite, at $7, leads into the Preakness. So in that pick 6, you had a second choice, you had a couple of favorites, and then the $11 horse, the $20 horse, and Cloud Computing got you the $7,000. You started with Whitmore, so in that pick 5, $6,000 pick 5, you had 2 favorites, the $11, the $20, and Cloud Computing at $28, and pick 5, you wound up with $6,000. The bet that kind of had the life sucked out of it for whatever reason was the Daily Double. World Approval at $7, so it's a lukewarm favorite, but leads into a $28 horse. The parlay is just over $100, but that Daily Double only paid $88.
Yeah, it kind of leads you to believe that maybe someone zoned in on that, or
maybe that's where your Cloud Computing was taking some money.
Right, and there are some people that take a look at where the money shifts are, especially in the doubles and the disparities that that you can see. But there were multiple options in that World Approval race with Black Type and Ring Weekend, and there was a bunch of other horses and angles you could have went. So while World Approval was 5-2, I don't believe he would have been in the double anyway. But obviously he was with the payout of that. So
Black Eyed Susan Preakness double I thought was nice. What do we have? 368.
368.
But we were talking off the air before we went on, and you had to have both of them. I don't think either of them were giveaways. I liked Actress. I had Actress in my mix. I didn't like Cloud Computing. So I think you kind of had to have at least some confidence in one or the other, and then maybe you could have spread.
Right.
And if you did, you wound up with a decent price.
Right. I ended up doing a Twitter blog the day of the Black Eyed Susan, and I'd given away that, and you could see it on paper, that it was going to be a fast pace. and I ended up landing on the wrong closers. I ended up going with Dancing Rags and Summer Luck, who was a little disappointing. But, I mean, if you look at the Equibase sheet, the first, second, third, and fourth place finishers came from 8th, 9th, 10th, and like 11th. And the pace was extremely hot, and Actress ran really, really, really well. And Jason Service, to put him in that spot, put her in that spot was, tremendous.
Yeah,
thing.
Maiden getting it done, so that was impressive. And she steps into the conversation for 3-year-old fillies. But again, there was some opportunity to make some money. You had to, obviously, as always, have the right opinions. Certainly, if you felt good about cloud computing, there was some ways to play around. The exacta $98 to me. It seemed a little slim, but you have the second choice Classic Empire right underneath, so it was probably about right. Again, we maybe get used to inflated prices with the 20-horse Derby field. This is a more reasonable, more logical, more normal 10-horse field. So you walked away with $98 on the exacta, with the $28 horse on top. As I say, I don't know whether I would have been super thrilled with that, but there were opportunities. As I say, the picks to me, given the horses in the mix, were pretty good.
Well, the triple was reasonable. I mean, it's 2,100, and if you take the whole method of, okay, well, I want to zone in on one horse, and you go, 5 deep, five deep by this horse, by all, or something like that. You ended up getting paid. So, that was kind of the way to go, I guess.
It was a tough day for me. No Mo Doe I did not have in my mix. I'm just looking at all the others I had in my mix, but he kind of knocked me out of some of those pick plays as the day went along. No Mo Doe, and then I didn't obviously have cloud computing. So for me, Preakness Day, betting-wise, was not good. Black-Eyed Susan Day, a little bit better. So the weekend overall paid off for me. But again, there was opportunities galore, I thought. There were some nice prices on the undercards and whatnot. They put together 2 really nice cards Friday and Saturday, and for the most part, the weather kind of held up. Late day Friday, it fell apart a little bit, but it turned yesterday.
Yeah, it was. I was actually shocked to see the track muddy on Friday because all week long they had said that it was supposed to be pretty good weather, and then yesterday morning when I saw the track was muddy and the turf was good, you try to look for some biases. In a couple of those turf races, they were walking up front in the World Approval race. They were walking up front, so the conditions were ideal for World Approval to just scoot on with it, and that's exactly what he did. But the weather ended up turning out to be really well post time.
Yeah,
and those questions you had in the Derby were answered yesterday.
The track was fast, so they did a good job there. All right, we'll head to our break. When we come back, Steve Bick, again, he was live at the radio show all week long at Pimlico. We'll get some thoughts on the big couple of days from him. Stay tuned.
You're watching And They're Off on the OTB TV network.
We'll have to take this abuse much longer.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. CapitalOTB.com offers live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, and a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform. And best of all, you get track prices. Going on now, it's Bet 50, Get 50. Simply open a Capital Bets account, bet $50, and get $50 cash back. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Face it, most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. CapitalOTB.com.
Championship horse racing continues at Capital OTB. There's no better place to watch, wager, and win than OTB TV and CapitalOTBBet.com. Now get all the racing information you need right on your mobile device with Capital OTB's new mobile app. Wager anytime, anywhere, right from your smartphone or tablet. Watch, wager, and win right at your fingertips. The new Capital OTB mobile app.
Welcome back to And They're Off. Seth Merrill and Mike Callahan in the studio, live via phone on the way back from Baltimore. Steve Bick. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, Mike.
How you doing?
I have to ask, is it pre or post waffle?
It is post Waffle House. We got an early break, much like cloud computing got an early trip back to New York. In fact, everybody has departed pretty much from Pimlico after the weekend, and great weekend down there as always.
And I have to let people know, we were talking on your radio show on Wednesday, and you said, I usually catch on Sunday morning just before or just after the Waffle House. So I was checking in. And again, before we get to the races, I want to touch on something else because I was reading your Twitter feed yesterday, and I pulled up the picture that people can look at. I thought this was great. Ron Moquett now has a fan for life, and he approached you and said of your lovely wife, he said to you, hey, introduce me to your daughter. And as people will see the picture, I can understand why. You have a great-looking wife, Tina and Ron Moquett, yesterday at the Preakness. But as I say, I'm sure Ron made a fan for life.
Yeah, Moquett is unbelievable. I had to show him where the paddock was. He was wandering around. Pimlico lost. Usually I walk over with the horses. I said, okay, come on, I'll show you. He's like Jethro Bodine, brought back to life. It's unbelievable. In fact, I coined a new expression for him. We're going to call him an Arklahoman. He was literally born on the border between Arkansas and Oklahoma.
And I will tell people to go check out your Twitter feed. You had great pictures all afternoon. And, of course, that was the place people could have found that fabulous Tom Durkin picture after the Derby a couple of weeks ago. But let's jump in and get your thoughts on the Preakness. We looked at it a little bit earlier, but let's go over it again. It played out. For me, it was a little bit disappointing because, like a lot of sporting events, if they live up to the hype, win, lose, or draw, you get some satisfaction. This one with the dud thrown in by Always Dreaming took a little bit of the air out of the balloon, but that's not to take anything away from the two horses at the finish line because they ran great. We're watching them come out of the gate here and go past the first time. Obviously, Julien Leparoux lives up to the instructions and goes out and engages right away, so it's Always Dreaming and Classic Empire taking it to the front. Gunnevera, the horse I liked, I thought was in a good spot. He just didn't have it, so I'm now divorced from that one. But Cloud Computing sitting in a great place, kind of tracking the leaders under Javier Castellano. Give us your thoughts on the Preakness yesterday.
Well, for starters, I don't know why Always Dreaming not running a competitive race takes away from this at all. You had a fascinating series of things happening here. The most important of which is Conquest No Money. You paid $150,000 to supplement the horse, and then you decide to take back. You take the horse's one tool. You take that away from him. That changed to me the complexion of this running. And we talked a lot coming in. Knew what Leparoux and the Cassie team wanted to do with Classic Empire, which was break clean, break sharp, and then absolutely graft themselves onto Always Dreaming. But I think that this race was lost for Always Dreaming when Conquest No Money did not engage and clear. They absolutely, in the Pletcher camp, wanted Conquest No Money to break running, set the pace, so they could set up shop the same way they did against State of Honor. He's a horse that does not necessarily provide the best running, I think, when he's out on the lead. He was under pressure under this circumstance every step, and clearly, backed out of it. And whether you want to say that he's a horse that does need to have things his way, we'll find out as his career goes on. But things change. I think that they wanted a target so that he could relax. And then I think the assumption was that Classic Empire and Always Dreaming would then, get by him when the real running started, and we would see a confrontation at that point. That's not what happened. And in the meantime, Always Dreaming dropped anchor early, and you could see on the backstretch, and even early in the race, when it went by the stands the first time, you could just see the way Johnny was sitting and the way Julien Leparoux was up. And you could tell that Johnny felt that he had to ride Always Dreaming a lot earlier than he did in the Derby. And sure enough, before they even hit the turn, he was finished. And that changes the race in a few different ways that it is hard to measure, because I think if Julien Leparoux and Cassie, if they could have drawn it up the way they wanted, they might have taken the lead past the 8 ball. Instead, now they've got him out on the lead, and he's not necessarily the right horse for that kind of thing. His head comes up, he starts to look around a little bit, and he's wondering where everybody is. And that left him a little susceptible late to the terrific ride that Javier Castellano put on Cloud Computing in an absolute dream trip, sitting exactly where they wanted and expected to be behind whoever the leaders turned out to be. And so you get, it doesn't matter for them. They win, and they win well. And everything that Chad Brown expected and planned with Seth Klarman in charge, this worked out beautifully. Chad Brown gets the first of his certainly going to be several classic wins, and you got to be delighted, really, for Seth Klarman and Bill Lawrence, who have been in the game a long time, who have been absolute stalwart owners in the industry forever. You never hear a peep out of Seth Klarman. He wins well, loses well. He's an absolute credit to the industry and deserving winner for a guy who blocked from Pimlico. Unbelievable. The old Jewish neighborhood on Reisterstown Road. Another guy who literally grew out of the Pimlico infield. It's a tremendous story all around for Chad Brown, for Klarman and Lawrence, you name it. More local angles. Cherie DeVoe, Chad's #1 assistant from the Capital District, and what she contributes to the team. Castellano, and this was a tremendous race. The Cassie organization, Jack Oxley, they were all frustrated, I think, a little bit, because here was a horse that again ran arguably the best race, second time in 2 weeks, and comes away with just a very credible placement. But he's going to get his wins. He is the 2-year-old champ. This was a terrific race.
Yeah, it had to be frustrating for the Classic Empire people. And again, they talked on the NBC broadcast as well of him maybe getting the lead too early. But I said a little bit earlier when we looked at the race, I think it was just a function of Always Dreaming was done and they inherited the lead. It wasn't necessarily Leparoux wanted it at that point. So that's just the way it felt. I agree completely. I said it earlier. Easy to root for the connections because Seth Klarman, again, one of those guys who puts a lot of money into the game. So to see him win big races like this, easy to root for those. And it was nice. I've now read it, quotes and mentioned on the NBC broadcast as well. Chad Brown tipped his cap a couple of times to his mentor, Bobby Frankel.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And talked about how, taking off the Derby and waiting to the Preakness was kind of a Bobby Frankel move. Let's wait until we have the spot we want and whatnot. So that was nice as well. All right, let's get some thoughts on some of the other stakes. I know we were talking during the break. There are a couple that appeal to you. I will tip my cap to you. I whiffed yesterday. Black Eyed Susan Day, I did pretty well. Yesterday I did okay, but I did not have No Mo Dough, and I just couldn't wrap my head around Cloud Computing. You had Cloud Computing high up in your mix, and No Mo Dough you had on top. I just couldn't get tied onto that one either. So those were the two that hurt me yesterday. But again, tip of the cap on No Mo Dough, a $20 winner.
Well, thank you. It was a terrific weekend overall. When I caught that pick 4, I kind of kicked myself that I didn't spend a little bit more to catch the pick 5. which paid almost $7,000. And I used cloud
And
computing.
I will tout to people, because I looked at that pick 5. The only reason you didn't hit it, you singled Always Dreaming. I don't know if you played the same one you had on the page, but on the page,
Yeah, I did.
had you gone one further deep, you would have had
Right.
cloud computing and picked up the $7,000 pick 5. But the pick 4 was okay.
Pick 4 paid $1,400,
Yeah.
and which was okay. It was very nice, but I thought that the only horse, if Always Dreaming wasn't going to win, in the way I was looking at it, I thought Cloud Computing was the only other horse that had an upset chance. I actually was more against Classic Empire in this spot, and was wrong on that front. He ran spectacularly well. I mean, I picked him third, but I really did not expect him to win, and I would have got nothing had he won. But anyway, it was a very fun day in terms of the way you looked at the. To me, of the 2 days, Friday was going to be the day to take some shots with prices. I thought that the card yesterday was going to be a lot more mundane, and it was and it wasn't. No Mo Doe, that group in the Sir Barton is a very nice set of horses, and there were a lot of ways to go. That horse of Dale Romans is going to be all right. The first out winner from 2 weeks ago, but the Grand Motion horse kind of stuck out to me. In fact, Grand Motion horse on Friday stuck out to me that I absolutely loved. The filly in the Hilltop. He was kind of a beach ball, I thought. Anyway, it was terrific wagering opportunities. As it turned out, I thought World Approval. Ran a huge race and was super impressive. Mrs. Weber wasn't there, actually. She's been attending most of the big weekends, but she was not around. And a terrific weekend overall. We mentioned Ron Moffett earlier. Whitmore, what a race he ran in that sprint. He looked absolutely like a chicken in a pot. And all of a sudden, when they sped up, and he was, kind of giving up some ground, it ended up working out that he didn't stick with the pace, because that might have muted his end run. And then when he re-engaged, and he ended up winning easy.
Yeah, I liked him quite a bit yesterday, because I thought what he did at Oaklawn put him squarely in the mix in this sprint division. So I was happy to see him get it done yesterday. And recruiting ready for Sagamore looked pretty good yesterday as well.
Yeah, I don't know. The sprint win that I liked was Kate Damascus win. That was great. She's a tremendous trainer. How about Proctor? How about the Giroux's terrific ride, nursing it along on Cambodia? I thought that was a very clever trip. Helped trigger some nice news towards. Really a fun weekend overall. That rain on Friday kind of came out of nowhere and bollocked up the result. Not that that actress, not that the Gary and Mary West maiden was an undeserving winner. She absolutely was. But you prefer that you get a dry fast going for everybody. But that was a fun result. It's a great weekend. I mean, I love it here, and I will hate to see, if it does happen, I'll hate to see this race move to Laurel, which seems to be what Stronach Group and MJC, that feels like what they're trying to angle for. If the state and the city don't come up with $300 million to renovate Pimlico, I just. There's something very unique about the place, and I think it's worth saving. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I never fail to leave Baltimore feeling anything but great about the time spent.
Yeah, and again, you did a great job all week long covering the lead up to the race on the radio show, so congratulations again there. And as I say, I'll tell people to pick up the Twitter feed because, as you mentioned, the undercard, you had a nice picture, won the second race yesterday, Katie Davis, nice big smile on her face that you had a nice shot of. And I got to ask you, we're running out of time here, but Williams Lucky Gray, you guys don't own that one anymore?
No, we still do. Woodbury's had her since she got hurt last spring, and then when she picked up the ball in September, we were trying to see where things were, and Woodbury said, you know what, she's running around the paddock, moving comfortably. So he put her back in training, and he's down in Florida most of the winter, so when she came back to run in West Virginia and at Laurel, I got to like Woodbury. She's been running in Woodbury's name, but that was a real thrill for us. She ran forward.
Yeah.
We've been rained off the turf 3 straight starts, and we had to scratch. If she had a tightener, I think she hangs on and wins that race yesterday. She ended up fifth, but I tell you, when Xavier Perez looked under his arm, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, stick it out. And she just got tired the last 175 yards. And they kind of stowed over her a little bit, but I was very pleased. And Woodbury's done an amazing job with her. And, she's a Maryland bred, so every time you run in Maryland, you're running for a 30% purse bonus.
Yeah, nice.
It was a real thrill. We had run on the personal instant undercard when Ausable won at Saratoga, and we ran on the Wood Memorial card with Lloyd Dobler. This was kind of a thrill to have this program, this Preakness program, forever with her in it.
Nice. Steve, appreciate the visit. Say hello to Tina and get home safe.
I appreciate it, guys. Looking forward to Belmont. Obviously, no Triple Crown try, but it looks like quite a few horses, including Senior Investment, and it looks like Looking at Lee's coming back. Classic Empire's going to run back. Some other horses waiting, including the Japanese, Paris. Should be okay, and then, of course, the Metro and everything else is going to go with the Belmont Festival. We'll have a week from Belmont, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Steve, again, travel safe.
Thank you.
Steve Bick, again, Sirius and XM. You can catch the coverage here on the network as well, replayed overnight and into the morning, but it did a great job leading into the Preakness. Why don't we head to a break? When we come back, we'll do some of the undercard stakes, maybe touch a little bit on the Black-Eyed Susan as well. All of that right after this. All right,
You're watching And They're Off on the OTB TV network.
We'll have to take this abuse much longer.
Not at the track and not near a computer? No problem. Wager with Capital OTB's Touch-Tone wagering system and you'll never get shut out again. Capital OTB's Touch-Tone wagering system is quick, simple to use, and guarantees your wagers are accurate and placed on time. For more information, visit CapitalOTB.com or call Capital OTB's customer service hotline at 800-292-BETS. Capital OTB's Touch-Tone wagering system. Never get shut out again.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit RTN.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Here's the lair! Honor Code looked like he got him in the last stride!
Like to play Aqueduct or Belmont Park, but you live upstate? With Capital OTB, your favorite tracks are closer than you think. With more than 60 easy bed and branch locations throughout the region, you're just a short drive from all the top tracks across the country and around the world. For a complete list of all easy bed and branch locations, visit capitalotb.com.
Welcome back to And They're Off here on a Sunday morning. Seth Merrill and Mike Callahan. And Mike, I thought we'd go back and we talked about it a little bit already, but go back and take a look at the Black Eyed Susan stretch run here of the Black Eyed Susan from Friday. Because I think this will play in the 3-year-old division as we move forward. This is number 10, Actress, getting it done. I liked her. I had her in the mix. I had her down in the 3rd spot. I used Moana and Lights of Medina, the 2 Pletcher horses, in my top 2 spots. Lights of Medina, the number 5, just gets nipped here by Actress. Number 6, Corporate Queen, 3rd. Moana disappoints a little, running 5th. The favorite was Summer Luck at, the favorite was Shimmering Aspen at 3-1, winds up running 7th. Summer Luck runs 8th. But again, Actress was a maiden coming in. I had her in the mix because I thought she was a dangerous maiden off the first couple of starts. Those were sprints. I thought it would be interesting to see her off the 2 sprints, stretch to 2 turns. She gets it done. Again, lightly raced. A maiden wins the Black Eyed Susan. As the year plays along, I think she'll be a player in this division now.
Absolutely. And if you watched when you were watching the stretch run of it, her momentum got completely stopped.
Yeah.
She made that nice wide move, and then coming down the lane, it was her and Lights of Medina, and she got all her momentum stopped and still was able to re-kick in and hold off. It was really gutsy effort. And again, just talking about it, Shimmering Aspen was that stretch out horse, that speedy horse on the Laurel circuit. She made a huge run around the far turn and then kind of flattened out, which you kind of expected because going from 7 to the mile and a 16th, it was to be expected. But she's a horse that probably coming back, I would take a look at. It was really more of like an educational run to see if they could do it, and she was okay. And the horse that, to me, halfway down the stretch who looked like it was going to win was Torrent. Mm-hmm. That was the horse that was slipping up the rail and then kind of, leveled out coming down the stretch. But, I mean, she made a huge run up the rail and looked like she was going to win. And I know Dave Rodman was, when you were listening to the race, kind of made that expression, she was coming really fast. So.
Yeah, and, of course, Abel Tasman, we were talking earlier this week about the 3-year-old filly division. When you win the Kentucky Oaks, you kind of become the queen of the division by default almost. Unique Bella is still sitting there with the possibility on a return to move back to the forefront because she was the leader in the clubhouse prior to the Kentucky Oaks. And you and I were talking, my sleeper is La Coronel. I think it's tough for a turf filly to move to the top of the division, but boy, if she faced the boys like they were thinking about on Derby weekend, that certainly would give her some momentum. But now I think it's Abel Tasman.
Yeah, she's done nothing wrong coming back this year so far.
But Abel Tasman and Unique Bell are up there on top. But Actress moves into the conversation.
And my sleeper when we were doing our dry run was Salty. Because remember, we had talked about the Oaks.
Too.
Go back and watch the Oaks. She breaks slowly, what she's supposed to do. She's a closer. Goes 4 wide into the first turn. Then Joelle kind of angles her into the inside down the backstretch, and then she wants to make her move around the far turn and gets completely pinched off as Abel Tasman and Daddy's Little Darling are going past, and then still has the ability to re-kick back in when was actually closing on them. And everybody was focused in on the top 2 finishers crossing the wire, but watch the 5th place run out of Salty. I think going forward, she's the dark horse in that group. So.
Some other interesting stakes on the weekend. Just mentioned in the DuPont on Friday, Terra Promessa validated her Oaklawn form. She looked so good down at Oaklawn. Then threw in that dud on the ride that was questionable, but came back in the Apple Blossom, the good second behind Stellar Wind. But, boy, on Friday she wins by almost 8 lengths. In the Pimlico Special, watch the stretch run here. Our friend Brian Nadeau, I talked to him on Friday. He thought Dolphus was going to be really interesting. And with the scratch and Noble Bird, Dolphus became even more interesting on the front end. And I'll tell you what, Shaman Ghost had all he could ask for to get up and just get past Dolphus by a neck is the 2-5 favorite. But it's a Jimmy Jerkins exacta, and quotes from Jimmy Jerkins said, hey, we went down there to run 1-2, and we did.
Yeah, I mean, the Shaman Ghost race was almost like a repeat when he faced Midnight Storm out in Santa Anita. I mean, when it was the exact same way. The horse was 3 or 4 lengths clear, and Shaman Ghost just kept coming, and then he looked like he had him sized, and then he had to shake the reins on her one more time just to get up by half a length. But Dolphus was ultra game in that performance too. So the top 2 finishers did nothing wrong. So.
Yeah, it was again an impressive performance for Shaman Ghost to get up there, but more impressive perhaps for Dolphus to really kind of fight him off. We mentioned it earlier. Whitmore looked really good, and now is an absolute major player in that sprint division, obviously, because AP Indian was a proven stakes quality at the highest level sprinter, and he winds up a half length back, but Whitmore looks pretty good, validating again what we saw down in Arkansas this year. And then also, you had mentioned you were impressed by Yoshida in the Murphy. I think you have the stretch run here. Yoshida's the number 6 horse here for trainer Bill Mott. Chubby Star comes underneath at 18-1, and Mo Maverick at 3-1. The favorite in here, Dover Cliffs, who I liked at 5-2, winds up a disappointing 9th. But Yoshida and Dover Cliffs were kind of similar to me, but I just gave a little more of a lift to Dover Cliffs. But boy, look at Yoshida here. This is going to be a player in the.
And actually,
the
a
turf.
horse to watch right now is the 2. It was actually getting pinched off. A horse named Total Tap. Look for that horse out next time, because I think could easily finish second in this race. Actually ends up finishing 8th, but Corey Lannery was just trying to wiggle his way through, and it's tough when you have tired horses in front of you. So you pick, one way, and then those horses go that way, and then, you're kind of in a position where you can't do anything. But, Yoshida was tremendous, did get the pace that she needed to get into it, but, kudos to Yoshida. And then Total Tap coming forward. That's a horse to watch. So.
Yeah, and Asmussen horse who I had in my mix as well. And the chart comment, brushed steadied at the 16th pole. So maybe, as you say, a little trip note there.
It's
for
a
people.
lot worse than, just
did
one
you watch,
word.
Did you watch the head-ons on turf are not as good as you would like, but did you watch the head-off? People go
I
back
haven't
and
got a
watch
chance
that.
to yet,
Maybe
but just
that
by the way,
worth,
I could see Corey,
Yeah.
because I had Total Tap in the race with Yoshida, and just the way that he was maneuvering the horse.
That may be worth people going back and taking a look at the head-on. As they say, sometimes the turf head-ons aren't as elucidating as you would hope, but it may be worth taking a look at and put a trip note there past Total Tap. All right, before we go to the break, just wanted to spend a minute or two, just because I thought on a big weekend it's worth kind of remembering this. There are some thoroughbred racing charities out there, and what got me going was, as I said, I was looking at the Steve Bick Twitter feed during the week, and there was a conversation going back and forth with Steve and some folks because the TRF, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, had a horse, Renaissance Bob, that they were trying to raise some money for. And Steve made a couple of comments on Twitter to kind of help them make the money, and he said he'd get some autograph programs for folks who would donate. Subsequently, they got the donations they needed. There you see Renaissance Bob for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. So again, I thought, on a big day, it's worth remembering that there are some thoroughbred charities out there that are worth paying attention to, not just on the horse side, but on the human side as well. The PDJF, Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund, keep that in mind. Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, keep that in mind. Yeah. Belmont Child Care Association on the human side as well.
Old Friends,
you pulled up Old Friends.
Old Friends, yeah. We do our charity bet in the summer, which we'll possibly be doing again in the summer. And I talked to Michael, tremendous person.
Oh, yeah, he's the best.
He's an awesome individual. And horses like Commentator, Silver Charm, War Emblem, all these horses did so much for the sport. And it's so good to recognize them, even when they're not, they had their moment. And now you're still able to go down there, visit them. These are historical things, and, horse racing is a close, knit community. So it's always good to recognize all of these charities. And, there's so many out there that it's tremendous.
Yeah, as I say,
even our PDGF event, which we'll be doing again in the summer.
That's worth mentioning. A couple of days before the meet opens, the PDGF Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund will have our annual event here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Mark that on your calendar because there is a good lineup shaping up.
Yes,
it should be a lot of fun. We'll obviously remind you as we get closer. But again, I thought it was on a big day. It was worth just kind of remembering some of these, the retirement programs and whatnot. You can type any of these names into Google. You'll pull up a website, and there are ways to donate. Just give a few bucks. As I say, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. There's the Retirement Foundation website. And that's the one that was forefront to me because that's where the conversation was. But Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, PDJF, Belmont Child Care Association is great for the backstretch workers. Takes care of the little kids with a nice education program back there on the Belmont backstretch. Old Friends, Thoroughbred Charities of America. So there are plenty of them out there. As I say, worth keeping in mind on a big racing weekend like this. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, more conversation focused on Pimlico, Preakness, Black-Eyed Susan weekend. We'll talk to Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com right after this.
You're watching And They're Off on the OTB TV network.
Lady, is this guy bothering you?
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Championship horse racing continues at Capital OTB. There's no better place to watch, wager, and win than OTB TV and CapitalOTBBet.com.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB television network.
EquestriCon.
EquestriCon.
The first ever international racing convention.
The first ever. For the fans.
Meet the legends.
The breeders, the owners.
The jockeys like me.
The best of the industry.
Come celebrate racing at EquestriCon.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Conquistador Cielo puts ahead in front. Alamos Ruler on the outside is second. And Runaway Groom from Canada moves up. Runaway Groom alongside the inner two. Those three to the wire. Runaway Groom, Alamos Ruler, Conquistador Cielo, Runaway Groom in front.
Welcome back to In There Off on this Sunday morning. We are joined now by Frank Vespi from theracingbiz.com. I say it every time Frank is on, and even sometimes Frank isn't on. I say if you want to follow racing in the Mid-Atlantic region, no better place than theracingbiz.com. A lot of that concentration is on Maryland racing, so I thought it was logical to reach out today. Good morning, Frank.
Morning, Seth. Good to be with you this morning.
Always happy to have you on board. We'll talk some specifics in a moment, but first just give us, again, you are down covering Maryland racing on a regular basis, Laurel and Pimlico. Talk a little bit about this week at Pimlico, the Alibi Breakfast, and a couple of good days of racing, and 2 record-breaking days as far as handling attendance.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is always a great weekend for Maryland, and it is the kind of one weekend a year when the racing world is really paying attention to Maryland. So, people kind of really people at the Maryland Jockey Club kind of go out of their way to try to make sure that the horsemen coming in have good experiences and all that. So it's a huge amount of fun. I mean, one of the things that has happened over the last couple of years that's a little less fun is, Pimlico's not in good shape right now, and this is becoming a debate that, every year it's the same thing. What's going to happen to Pimlico? What's going to happen to Pimlico? And in my mind, it's become a question that kind of more urgently needs to get addressed because the Maryland Jockey Club they're not spending money to really keep Pimlico in good condition. And, so it's sort of gradually declining, and there's a political process going on. So there's that sort of overlay, which for people who cover Maryland on a regular basis, has gotten really, really old.
Yeah, and as I was putting headlines together this past week for Equidale, certainly that was a major topic, and as you say, is becoming more and more so, probably based on the condition deteriorating further and further every year at Pimlico. So we'll see how it plays out, certainly. But as I say, good numbers regardless over the 2 days. So good news for racing following record-breaking numbers Derby weekend down at Churchill and Louisville as well. But let's get to some of the races. We'll watch the Preakness here once again because that, of course, the highlight of the weekend. Give us some of your thoughts on the Preakness. It certainly played out the way we expected going down the stretch the first time. Maybe not so much as they came out of the turn, given the fade job by Always Dreaming. But can't take anything away from the top two finishers. Good performance by both Classic Empire and, of course, the winner, Cloud Computing.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And just as you said, the puzzle of the day is what happened to Always Dreaming. I mean, that was pretty much a no-show. Yeah. I went back and watched the replay this morning, and entering the far turn, the horse was looking for a way to quit, and did pretty much shortly thereafter. So that had to be really a disappointment. I mean, having talked with Todd, or having been in these press conferences literally all week, I mean, they were very pleased, and they were saying that they were seeing something very different from what they saw from Super Saver a couple of years ago when he brought him in and he ran up the track in the Preakness. But then when it came to race day, they saw the exact same thing they saw from Super Saver. So that was obviously the big disappointment. Cloud Computing ran a terrific race. I had a piece up on the RacingDisc.com earlier this week. I talked with his exercise rider, Peter Leva, and he was telling me, and obviously he's biased, but he was telling me he thought this horse was really ready to run a good race, that his last couple of breezes, he had been absolutely motionless on him, and the horse was going fast and doing it easy, and so he thought he was really ready to run a big race. And I kind of wondered if he was quite ready to beat this type of horse, but he had just the perfect trip sitting behind the speed. Great job by Castellano on him, and just a really big effort for that horse. And so you got to think he's, all these horses have taken turns beating each other. You got to think he's a horse that, is going to be heard from more down the line.
Yeah, it's still lightly raced, and, Chad breaks through. Good move sitting out the Derby, coming with a fresh horse. So he's going to be interesting to watch going forward. The whole 3-year-old class, I think, how will it develop? Will Classic Empire finally break through and validate that 2-year-old season? I think yes, but it's going to be fun to watch going forward now, Belmont and beyond into the summer. Jim Dandy, Haskell, Travers. All right, let's talk about some of the other races on the weekend, because I thought there were a couple that had some local intrigue that maybe you can address, because, again, you cover Maryland racing on a regular basis. I wanted to go back to Friday, the Jim McKay Turf Sprint, a race I talked a lot about last week because I'm such a huge fan of Ben's Cat, 11 years old, multi-millionaire. In this race, Ben's Cat is going to be the number 5 horse, a disappointing 8th in the field of 14, mid-pack at 8-1. I put him on top. I thought the first race of the season wasn't that bad, and I thought maybe he could do it. Maybe I was putting my heart over my head. The 2 horses I had right underneath, Run 1-2, Richard's Boy, the Southern California-based horse, and Pay Any Price. So I kind of had it right past Ben's Cat. But talk a little bit about the feeling in the stands when Ben's Cat didn't fire.
Yeah, I mean, people love Ben's Cat, obviously, and should love Ben's Cat. The horse is fabulous, and it's been such a great story over the years. you know, one of the things that happened with this race is it was basically clear all day, and then the skies absolutely opened up right before the race and all the way through the race. And so that, you know, that Trevor McCarthy, who rode him, gives the horse a little bit of an excuse, saying that he was having a little bit of a hard time with the ground. It was a little more slippery than he liked. But, you know, I think the answer with Ben's Cat is he's just not this kind of horse at 11 years old. And, you know, I was there at when he made his season debut back a month or so ago, and I know you and others thought it was maybe better than it looked. I actually came down in the office at camp. I thought it was worse than it looked because I think when he dived to the rail in that race, it kind of gave you the optical illusion that he was closing, but really he was just going sideways to the rail.
Yeah. Right.
And he didn't really make any ground up once he got there. And so, you know, I think if the Maryland Jockey Club writes some more of those open allowances with like $50,000 purses, and he sees the same kind of horses he saw that day, he might win one of those. I mean, I think he's good enough to compete with those horses. I guess I just don't think he's good enough to compete with Richard's Boy and pay any price anymore.
Yeah, now that he's put two of them together, you would have to think that. Although, with the freakish weather condition, which, as you say, happened just as they were going in the gate, maybe you could make the excuse, maybe I'm just in love with Ben's Cat. I'm looking for anything.
Give him an angle. Give him an angle. Give him something.
He's a great story, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what King Leatherbury decides to do. All right, let's take a look at another sprint on the weekend that had local implications. The Chick Lang yesterday, number 7, Recruiting Ready, comes out of the really nice races down at Oaklawn and validates those as the second choice at 5-2. Recruiting Ready is going to be the number 7 horse in here. The favorite, 3 Rules, the number 1 horse, will wind up running third. But again, local connections for the winner, Recruiting Ready. Sagamore Farms owns this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a horse that, you know, look, like with every other horse that debuts nicely, and this horse won by 10 lengths in his debut last April at Pimlico. You know, as soon as that happens, you start thinking, how do we get to the Kentucky Derby? And they tried to stretch the horse out, and he doesn't want to stretch out. But now that they figured out what he wants to do, he wants to go 3/4 mile. He wants to be up on the engine all the way. And now they got a really good horse on their hands, and this was a really nice effort because he had horses around him all the way around the track. You know, wasn't like he had the easy going here where he's a couple clear. He was pretty much being hounded, and then he kicked away nicely, and nobody was running at him. I thought that was a really nice effort by this horse. And, you know, we talked about off air before I came on another horse who has a similar profile who ran later on the card, which is Whitmore, who won the Maryland Sprint. And he's a horse that they kept trying to stretch out. You know, he was on the Derby trail, and he doesn't want that. But now that they got him going 3/4 mile, he might be as good as any sprinter in the country. And I think it's probably a good lesson to everybody that, you know, you got to listen to the horse and do what the horse wants to do because you can't make him do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, it happens every year, 3-year-old season. If they have something that's shown some ability, they want to stretch out. And sometimes it takes longer than other times for them to kind of finally decide, okay, let's get what's in our wheelhouse. And both of these horses, I think, have kind of figured that out. The connections have, but Recruiting Ready, Whitmore looked pretty good on the sprint side. And we talked a little bit off the air as well, and we watched it a little bit earlier, that Pimlico special on Friday. That was a ding-dong battle that was clearly affected by the scratch of Noble Bird because that put Dolphus in kind of the catbird seat, and he almost capitalized on it.
Yeah, I thought he ran a terrific race. And you're exactly right. I mean, Noble Bird figured to heat up pace, and you know that was going to be a big problem for Dolphus. And then all of a sudden he's loose on the lead. And but you know, Shaman Ghost is really, really good.
Yeah, he is really good.
And finally just wore him down at the end. And you know, it was nice to see. You know, as a Maryland guy, I mean, the Pimlico Special is a race you really want to see get back to its prominence. And the first year it came back, they got a really good field, and then the last couple of years it's been okay, but it's been a grade 3 race pretty much. And it was nice to see this year, you know, a Shaman Ghost come down. A couple of these horses where, you could say, okay, this is a race that made the case that this needs to maybe get another, move up a spot.
Yeah, Shaman Go's clearly a major player in the handicap division this year, so I agree. That gave some real validity to the Pimlico special, a nice Friday card with the Black Eyed Susan, the highlight, and then a nice card on Preakness Day as well. Really put together a couple of nice cards. I'm assuming folks swinging by theracingbiz.com, there will be obviously recaps of some of the stakes action, but postscripts on all the action over the weekend as well.
Yeah, we got lots of stuff going on, including, this was kind of fun, a sort of call-by-call gallery of where the horses were in the Preakness all the way around the track. So that's kind of fun. And right now, and you'd probably predict this, the most read article on the site today is we did these Preakness profiles of all the horses in the Preakness on cloud computing, because I think all these people are waking up going, who the heck is cloud computing? And
tell me more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So lots of stuff there for people coming by the races.com.
All right, Frank, before we let you go, you want to mention anything else, any names or anything you want to throw out there?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. I want to particularly
how ironic.
Hi to my handicapping buddy Leon, who is a regular watcher of the show, and his wife Carol.
We're happy to tip our cap to regular viewers.
Yeah.
You kidding?
That's great.
I suspect they're on their second or third Bloody Mary right about now on this program. So,
God bless them. When I get off, I'm stopping by their place. Frank, as always, we appreciate the visit. We tell people to swing by theracingbiz.com, and we'll talk again.
Thanks so much, Seth, and Mike. Good to be with you guys this morning.
Thank you for everything.
Thanks, Frank. All right, it's time to wrap things up. Before we do, just have some quick hitters. I pulled a few shots off Twitter that we can just kind of go through quick. But I'm always I'm a fan of a good pun. And somebody, when Kevin Spacey showed up on the NBC broadcast yesterday, somebody tweets out, and if you can't read that, horse of cards, which I kind of liked. I thought that worked in favor of Kevin Spacey. Also went over to Janine Edwards' Twitter feed. She was working the race the weekend for ESPN. But she had a shot. I'm guessing, you think of racetrack food, you think of pizza and hot dogs. Although there is good food at other tracks, but you think of any kind of ballpark or sporting event.
Yeah.
Pizza, hot dogs,
yeah, it's the quick
hamburgers.
food. Yeah.
But Janine Edwards tosses up, yes, a platter full of crab cakes, which looked very good. And I was looking at a local video from one of the local news channels over the week, and they were talking the lineup there. Those look good, man. That looks like good racetrack. I'm guessing that's not every day. But they said how many crab cakes they would make over the 2 days. I've forgotten what it was, but it was an incredible amount of crab cakes. But if they all came out that good.
Home of the king crab.
Yeah.
It's home of the king crab.
And finally, somebody put up on Twitter a shot of the infield crowd. And people always ask me on the big days, hey, you going to the Derby, you going to the Preakness, and I always say, you know what, I like a nice Thursday where you can stretch out and kick your legs up and not so much the big crowds, but if we have the picture of the infield crowd, you will see why I'm not that big of a fan of showing up on some of the big days, because it's wall to wall in the infield yesterday. But God bless them, 140,000, I think, a record crowd, record handle. So it's a big day down there, and as they say, some nice betting opportunities.
Absolutely.
We'll see how it plays out, because a lot of these horses, as we alluded to, will now be players in their various divisions going forward.
Right. And actually, as a quick hitter for the local sports, UAlbany versus Maryland today. In the lacrosse
and they're
quarterfinals.
Good.
Yeah, actually, it was ironic because I was at the clubhouse yesterday working, and there was a family that came in, and they actually came from Baltimore up here. And I was like, well, everything that's up here. Well, they were up here for a graduation, and then they were like, well, we're going to a graduation at UAlbany, but we're from Baltimore. And then we started talking about the lacrosse game and whatnot, and we were like, oh, we're bitter enemies today, but tomorrow we're going to be doing fine.
They have a good lacrosse team this year. As a Syracuse graduate, I pay a moderate amount of attention to lacrosse, but they certainly, Syracuse year in and year out.
Yeah, they did like some sort of formula, and University of Albany was number one.
Yeah.
Right, through that formula.
Yeah,
and these two teams have played this year, and UAlbany lost by 1. So, it's going to be a good one.
I always like to root for the low.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll wrap things up for you, and they're off for this Sunday morning. We're here every Sunday from 10 until 11 a.m. As always, tweet us out, our Capital OTB Twitter feed. Let us know there. Viewer mail at capitalotb.com, our Facebook page. Comments, questions, suggestions in regard to the show. We would love to hear from you. So again, tweet us, Facebook, viewer mail at capitalotb.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also want to thank our friends at Woodbine for their sponsorship. Woodbine, pick, bet, and cheer on world-class racing north of the border. Mike?
Thank you
Great
for everything.
Inaugural edition.
I broke my maiden.
Appreciate your stopping by this morning. For everybody out there, enjoy the races this afternoon. We'll see you again next Sunday morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.